I sat at the bar, downing several shots of vodka in one go. The fiery burn of the alcohol slid from my mouth to my stomach, setting my nerves ablaze. I wasn't someone who drank often, but at this moment, only alcohol could grant me a fleeting sense of relief. My life had taken a devastating turn just an hour ago. I caught my ex-boyfriend in bed with Vivian, the cheerleading captain. When I barged into his apartment, his cock was still inside that bitch. Damn it, that disgusting image made me feel like I'd been gutted. Your boyfriend isn't the best I've ever had, but he's pretty strong, and he fucks me really well. Vivian's arrogant laughter echoed in my ears as if it had just happened. Although I broke up with Lucian on the spot, the sadness still consumed me like a tidal wave. Laughter and cheers came from not far away. The boys and girls were celebrating, their joy feeling like it belonged to a completely different world from mine. Hey, Serafina, are you sure you don't want to head over there? I heard the Eagles Club is celebrating their big win tonight. Jack, the bartender in front of me, said with a wink. I knew Jack well. I worked part-time at this bar, and he had helped me out countless times. Though he was 20 years older than me, I considered him a friend. I shook my head. No, I'm good. The Eagles Club was this fighting club full of hot, muscular guys. They were the most popular dudes in town, but they had zero to do with me. I hated noisy crowds. Jack chuckled and poured me another drink. After finishing it, I stumbled to the restroom, my head spinning. As I pushed open the door, I nearly collided with someone walking out. He was drop-dead gorgeous, thick black hair, deep brown eyes, and an aura that was somehow both cold and inviting. He stood around 6'3", his black t-shirt stretching across his muscular build. His biceps were broader than my shoulders. He looked like Chris Evans, stunning and commanding. His gaze locked onto me, and my stomach did a flip. I realized who he was, Cale Emberwood, captain of the Eagles Club and an undefeated boxer. Since joining the club, he'd maintained a perfect win record. At 20, he was practically a local celebrity, adored by every girl in town, including that Vivian. Rumor had it they'd hooked up, and he was her favorite. Besides, Lucian was one of them at the Eagles Club, and Cale was their captain. Suddenly, the memory of Vivian and Lucian flashed in my mind. Looking at Cale now, my heart raced again, and my blood boiled. Wrong restroom? Cale raised an eyebrow, his tone playful. He was the town's golden boy and a notorious player. He had always been spotted at bars and known for his conquests. Surely, he wouldn't turn me down, I guessed. I was actually pretty confident in myself and I was pretty sure I would not be any worse than that Vivian. Has anyone ever told you how hot you are? I murmured, licking my lips as I leaned closer to Cale, my hand sliding over his chest. Through his thin shirt, I could feel the firm muscles beneath, and the radiating heat. Cale's body temperature was higher than anyone else's I'd ever touched. Must be all that celebrating, this night was all about him, after all. Not long ago, Cale had just beaten the top fighter from the neighboring town. The club had gone wild, and now they were all at the bar celebrating. When he noticed me approaching, he didn't step back. Instead, his eyes locked onto mine, gleaming with interest, like a wolf spotting prey. Encouraged by those eyes, I let my hand wander lower, tracing the hard lines of his abs. It felt like I was running my fingers over a solid wall. Damn, his body was the kind that could make any woman weak in the knees. His breathing deepened, his eyes fixed on me, dark, intense, a mix of coolness and barely restrained hunger. If you keep this up, I won't be able to control myself. I'll fuck you right here in the bathroom, he said. Maybe I just don't care, I replied, the alcohol making me bold. How freaking wild would that be? Cale stared at me for a moment, then pulled me into his arms. Let's go to my place, he said. And just like that, in a haze of alcohol and desire, I found myself in Cale's apartment. When he pulled off his shirt, revealing his sculpted torso, I suddenly felt a pang of nervousness. I was a good student, the bookworm type. In 6 months with Lucian, we'd only slept together once. Had he cheated because I wasn't adventurous enough? Fuck that. The alcohol had made me forget my insecurities before this moment. What, you having second thoughts? Cale asked, noticing the unease on my face. No, just a little nervous, I admitted. Regret? Not a chance. Now all I could think about was Lucian and Vivian tangled together in bed. I needed a revenge. There was nothing to be afraid of. Cale stepped closer, lifting me into his arms. I giggled, pulling his head down to mine, kissing him hard, even biting his lip a bit. His tongue slipped into my mouth, and I wrapped my legs around his waist. We kissed like that, me clinging to him like a koala as he carried me through the apartment. The apartment was dimly lit, the only sound our muffled moans and heavy breathing. My arms tightened around his neck. His body felt even hotter now, almost unnaturally so. Finally, Cale roughly tossed me onto the bed. Just as I was adjusting to the disorienting sensation of the world spinning, his tall, imposing body pressed down on me. The scent of his cologne enveloped me, setting my entire being ablaze. Turn off the lights, I managed, clinging to what little sense I had left. There's no need. I want to feel your body more. What I really hoped was he wouldn't be able to recognize me tomorrow. At the bars, I always wore over-the-top makeup, death metal punk chick vibe, and I did that for a reason. It was my way of avoiding unnecessary trouble. Eventually, Cale flicked off the last light without argument, and when he was back, his hand found my face in the dark, his lips crashing into mine. I had assumed that Cale, a boxer with that kind of muscles, would be rough and reckless. However, he just kissed my lips again, somehow sensing my nerves, and his tongue danced with mine for a really long time before he proceeded. Feeling his touch, my body arched uncontrollably. I grabbed his neck, pulling him closer. God, I must have looked desperate. Faster, harder, I whimpered, almost grinding against him, my nails digging into his skin. These new sensations almost brought tears streaming down my face. Finally, I convulsed in ecstasy, my senses overwhelmed by the intensity of my climax. It was so intense and sudden, overwhelming all my senses with its shocking force. I lay gasping on the bed as Kale shed the last of his clothes. He then just spread my legs. As he positioned himself at my entrance, I trembled, instinctively clinging to him. Good girl, is this your first time? Kale asked in a low voice, perhaps sensing my nervousness. He kissed my lips gently. I was too overwhelmed to answer, my senses consumed by the intensity of the moment. I buried my face in his chest, nuzzling closer. Kale chuckled softly at my actions, his movements becoming even more tender and patient. At first, he moved cautiously, his deep eyes watching me intently. If I winced, he would stop and kiss me. Once the initial discomfort passed, I felt an incredible fullness, the pleasure spreading through my entire body. You don't need to worry about me, I gasped. I want you to fuck me like a wild horse. Kale took the invitation, thrusting with abandon, his movements radiating dominance and possessiveness. I wrapped my arms and legs around him, holding on tightly as he bent down to suck on my neck. Goosebumps rose on my skin. It felt as though Kale's teeth had grown into sharp fangs, ready to pierce my flesh at any moment. Does it feel good? He asked, kissing my lips. Despite his roughness, his tone was gentle, like a true gentleman. Yes, I panted, my tongue flicking across my lips. I can handle even more. As soon as I spoke, Kale's thrusts grew even more forceful, shaking me to my core. This was an experience unlike any I'd had before. Compared to this, my time with Lucian had been utterly disappointing. Back then, Lucian had only cared about his own pleasure, leaving me in pain and numbness. He had climaxed before I could even begin to enjoy it. That experience had left me with no desire for sex. But now, my body trembled. My mind went blank, all my senses focused on the intense lovemaking. Yet, at times, I couldn't shake the feeling that Kale's eyes glowed with a golden light, burning into me with an almost predatory intensity. He seemed to love biting me, making me feel like prey caught in the jaws of a wolf, or perhaps we were wild animals mating in the wilderness. This strange sensation frightened me slightly, but overall, Kale gave me an unforgettable experience. The alcohol fogged my mind, and Kale's relentless movements brought me to climax again and again. Finally, we both collapsed, exhausted, and fell asleep in each other's arms. I woke up in the middle of the night. As I came to my senses, I realized the recklessness of what I'd done and sat up abruptly. I shouldn't have gotten involved with a playboy like him. What happened just now had completely derailed my life. I looked at Kale, who was still asleep, and suddenly felt a buzzing in my ears. My heart raced, and my body grew weak, craving him again. But reason prevailed. I quietly got out of bed, dressed, and fled the apartment. I hurried back to my own apartment, locked the door, and rushed into the shower, scrubbing myself clean. I removed my colored contacts, washed off my makeup and temporary tattoos, and took off the wig. In an instant, I transformed from a bad girl back into a good girl. I had light brown hair, dark eyes, and clear skin. I didn't need glasses, but I wore thick, old-fashioned frames to hide my face. I liked wearing loose t-shirts and jeans, which allowed me to attend classes quietly and avoid unwanted attention. I had thought Lucian had seen the beauty in my soul, that our love was precious. But reality had taught me that men only cared about appearances. Damn it, I shouldn't have deluded myself.